Well, sending everyone welcome to another episode of Unparalleled Sports Talk with yours, Kwame Fisher Jones. As always, I am him, and I am joined by my man Chris Franklin of NJ.com, ready to break down some, I guess, NFL offseason news and notes. This is the first time we spoke before the draft. Uh, I'm gonna jump right into this. I did not think Shedeur Sanders would go in the first round. If you remember that,
Right.
I said if he doesn't go to Pittsburgh, probably second or third round. I had a lot of questions about him as a player. He wound up not going to like 6 days later, but he wound up going in what the fifth round to the Cleveland Browns, which I don't understand. But before we get started with the new NFL season, we have to wrap a bow up with the NFL draft. So, what were your final thoughts on the way everything worked out for Shedeur Sanders?
Well, I think one thing was that I was actually shocked that he didn't go in the first round late, especially too. I know there was a lot of buzz going around Jackson Dart, and we all know the Giants jumped up and grabbed him there. But I thought that a team like the Steelers or another team that was picking out like the Browns again would pick him in the first round because you had that extra year to see if it'll work out. And I was shocked. I still think he's got a really good career ahead of him. I think he still has some tools as well too. But we, as we say, and we can talk about this later as well too. What we saw with Caleb Williams too. A lot of times it goes with the organization, how
Yep.
they prepare their quarterbacks.
Yep.
And I thought the Steelers would have been good fit because at least organizationally, there's would have thought that about years before. Looking on this year, I don't know. Talking about getting Aaron Rodgers, but you look at this year and it's like it's just bad. I think the fact that you're the Cleveland Browns and you
Yeah.
took Dylan Gabriel, and if
Yeah.
you remember that still, you saw when they had to take Shador, the fact they had to trade up in front of the Eagles, who I really think they were going to take him in the fifth round if he was available, because why not?
Yeah.
The fact you saw their faces, you saw Stefanski's face, you saw Barry's face, and it's like, we had to do it. We were told to do it. I guess here we go. But I think he's going to have a really good. I think he might be the number two. I think he has a shot because you look at Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, Dylan Gabriel. All right, but I think he's better than Dylan Gabriel. I think he has a shot. He's going to be a number two. I think at worst.
The Cleveland Browns are the praying mantis of NFL quarterbacks. The mating partner of the praying mantis mating partner of NFL quarterbacks. For those of you who don't know, the praying mantis, the female praying mantis, mates with the male praying mantis by taking his head off. That is what the Cleveland Browns do to their quarterbacks. They take their heads off. Every quarterback they draft, it's much like the Philadelphia 76ers and every player that they draft in the top five. Everybody don't suck, dog. At some point, you the problem. Cleveland is a bad place for him. It's a bad place for any quarterback. I don't believe he'll be successful. He's with a coach that didn't want him, a GM that doesn't want him, and a franchise everyone's quarterbacks. What about that plus does not equal success? And good thing he's got going for him, and the great thing he's got going for him is his father's not going to stand there and let it just happen. Like Dion knows, not only does he know the NFL, he knows life. And he knows when a guy is set up to fail. And he's being quiet right now. He'll give it a chance. But I'm going to be honest with you. Year two, if things don't look right, I believe Dion requests a trade. I believe he comes out and says, my son needs to get out of there. I think he's very vocal about it. Again, I'm going to repeat it. He's with a coach that didn't want him, general manager that didn't want him, and an organization that's known to ruin quarterbacks. The thing about that, I mean, okay, Tim Couch. Okay, Tim Couch is a bad quarterback. Johnny Manziel. Okay, Johnny Manziel was a bad quarterback. Baker Mayfield. Okay, Baker Mayfield was. Stop me when at some point you say maybe Browns were there were three different types of quarterbacks, three different decades, different eras. What was the Whitney Brown? What happened to him?
Oh yeah.
He was a bad player too. You know what I mean? Everybody's a bad player in Cleveland. Nobody can get it right. And it's interesting that they took him in the fifth round. Since you thought the Eagles were going to take him in the fifth round, I have some questions about Shedeur as a player. What I don't have questions about is him as a person. Usually, good, hardworking people have some level of success if they're with the right organization. What does that success look like? We don't know, but they usually have some level of success. Cleveland's not the right organization. There's no way around it. The only worst organization would have been the Saints. Speaking of bad organizations, your quarterback had a bad shoulder. You didn't know that going into the draft, or you. So there's two ways to look at this. You're bad because you didn't know that your quarterback had a bad shoulder going into the draft, or you're really bad because you draft one of the worst quarterbacks on the board in a weak quarterback draft. When you see what the Saints have done, and I know we were talking about the Browns, but I got to transition to the Saints now. When you see what the Saints did, do you? What are your thoughts about what the Saints did? Let's just go that direction with it.
You know how you hear something, you hear like a music, like somebody says, "Oh, this track, you gotta listen to this mixtape. It's really, really good." And you listen to it, and you're just like, "Why'd you have me waste like 45 minutes of my life?" That's what I get about Mickey Loomis and Saints GM. Everybody says he's this brilliant guy who keeps this team afloat. He keeps them competitive. You're in the NFC South. You should be a dynasty. Whoever a team should be a dynasty in that division. You're not.
Yeah, yeah.
He's the guy that gave all those picks to the Eagles to make a trade and get Olave and all this other stuff. And look where it panned out. Didn't happen. So when they took Tyler Shaw, and I apologize, I probably mispronounced his name. I always mispronounce his name from out of Louisville. I'm like, why? For what? You knew you had this issues going on with Derek Carr. You try to keep it quiet. Part of me thinks that Derek Carr, they looked at it and like, okay, we better announce this now and get ahead of this because somebody's want to leak it and he wants to force a trade. And Carr just like, retire me. I can get some money. I keep my guaranteed money. You go move on your step away with your quarterbacks and let's move on from here. I really think he wanted out because he saw what's going on. Spencer Rattler, oh, he's going to be the next guy. He's going to replace Carr. Flop. So what makes you think? I mean, the only person I see can help him is Kellen Moore, but from an organizational standpoint, we talk organization, he could have him, yeah, Garrett Nussmeier. We saw what they did last year. When you don't have everything else around him and it looks like it's bad, you're just setting yourself up for failure. You hope it changes, but with Mickey Loomis, you don't know how long term it's going to be.
And the worst thing that could happen is they could have a little bit of success starting out early in the year and get this false bravado that they're better than where they are. You mentioned Derek Carr just won it out. Derek Carr may have won it out. Retiring allows him to, and I don't know how the NFL is, but you can retire for a year or two and come back and change teams if you want to. If a team refuses to trade you. But it was just the Saints and the Browns are bad teams, and they put quarterbacks in bad. They put a lot of players in bad situations, and I really just going back to Shedeur and jumping to Derek Carr. I really think those were two solid quarterbacks who would have had better careers if they were with better franchises. Now, before we transition past draft, I just want to. What team or what team or player left the most or the biggest impression for this weekend? There's one guy for me, and it's early in the draft, and I'll get to him in my opinion. But who left the biggest impression for you? Whether good or bad?
I think the good one, and I think that, oh, actually, it's good. And I can actually take a cop out. It's good and bad. He was taken number 3 overall by the Giants, Abdul Carter. I like the way that he
On
thought.
everything, Chris, that's the same person I was going to talk about, but I think for different reasons. But I can't believe that. That is crazy. That is crazy.
It's
That is
for two.
crazy.
It just sticks out because I see what he can do. And I see you add him with Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. And you have this rotation now, and you mix him with Dexter Lawrence. That defensive front can create a lot of havoc. But the problem is he's talking like he's Micah Parsons all of a sudden, and he's trying to go like he's always talking. And that's like you're a
Yeah.
rookie. Don't set yourself up for failure early
Yeah.
on. And now you're talking
Yes.
about Lawrence Taylor. Can I have your number? On your own. Mr. Sims, can I have your number? And the great scary part is Sims was going to do it before his family was like, "Don't do this." And it wasn't even Chris Sims. It was his wife and his daughter were like, "No, don't do this. You have your own legacy. Let him do it." So I guess I'll keep doing this. I guess I'll keep this. I'll keep finding my own numbers. Right? Why are you trying to steal numbers from everybody else and you haven't even proven yourself? You've done one rookie minicamp. You did that even before you did the rookie minicamp. Don't set yourself up. Micah Parsons, I think, has a lot of these guys thinking like I can just talk, I can just talk, I can do this, all that stuff. You have to
When
prove
they
yourself to be a
downplay
Micah
Micah.
Parsons. Yeah. Wait, well, I have my own issues. We can talk later. Micah, what he did during that schedule release was just like, dude, just be quiet. But it Abdul Carter, do something on the field before you start trying to make yourself into this great player. If you're great, you can talk your stuff and you can request that stuff, but not right now. You're a rookie, man.
I it's funny you said Abdul Carter was the one. At first, it was Travis Hunter and what Jacksonville did, and just kind of trying to figure things out. But Abdul Carter asking Lawrence Hill his number, asking for Sims' number. You know, being a guy that went into Penn State, and a lot of guys go and switch positions, but he was supposed to be like a tight end or something, right? He
Yeah,
was supposed to be an offensive guy, and he had a lot of success at defensive end. Look, I don't think he's going to be a player. I can't remember the last, outside of Mike, of course, the last top five Penn State star. And you think about it, like you really think about it. Kerry Collins, maybe?
Saquon.
Oh, Jesus.
Well,
Okay, great point. No,
but
Saquon, great point.
defensive players though.
Saquon was so good, I forgot he went to Penn State. But, he became a star second team,
Yeah,
and it was his first team. The Giants.
yeah, Giants.
Was it? I think not. Okay, so on that note, I'll leave that there. I didn't even align that aligned better than I could have imagined. So, the last top five Penn State star was the guy that didn't become a star until he left. Saquon had devastating injury, was a bit of overwhelming. People question if he was even bust. He goes to the Eagles, and he's now arguably a first ballot Hall of Famer. Here we have another guy that goes to the Giants. Wow, perfect. Maybe he comes to Philly and leads them to a Super Bowl. All right, off-season moves. Aaron Rodgers is still out there. Who cares? The Steelers and DK Metcalf. What's the logic behind this move? Why go that
I'm
route?
I don't get that one. I mean, to me, he's the player where if you were a legitimate Super Bowl contender and you were a wide receiver away, I get it. But that team, who's going to throw him the ball? Like you
Yeah,
went ahead, you got
yeah,
rid of it. You got Mason Rudolph. Mason, he's a good. Everybody falls in love with that backup quarterback, and that's what the syndrome they're having out there at Pittsburgh. Like, well, if we don't get Aaron Rodgers, we love Mason Rudolph. He can do that. Mike Tomlin might get a losing season, or just like the Chargers schedule release, all trails lead to a 9-8 season if you keep on doing that. So we
yeah.
all know what happens there.
We'll talk. Pickens goes to Dallas. We've got Russell Wilson going to the Giants. Obviously, Derek Carr retires. I the Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston move to the Giants just reeks of I don't want to say it reeks of an insincere move. They knew they weren't going to draft Shedeur. They knew they weren't going to draft Ken Ward. They knew that there was going to be a state surrounding them because once again they just been to move away from a black quarterback. For whatever the reason, they were going to reach on another, shall we say, mediocre white quarterback. And I don't want to call Jackson dark because he's just kind of wrong place, wrong time. But I don't like Russell Wilson going there. He was a bit overpaid for that position for what they got him at. Jameis Winston probably won't be on the final. Well, probably won't be on the opening day roster. I know some of the names guaranteed, but I don't think he's on. And I would be surprised if just the starting quarterback middle of the season. So that move bothered me. Pickens going to Dallas. They needed their deep threat. Did they get because CeeDee Lamb's more surgical? That's not that big. But they weren't a wide receiver away. But the reason why Metcalf doesn't make sense to Pittsburgh is this. Aaron Rodgers struggles with guys that improvise and straight line runners. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're more of a football tactician than me. DK Metcalf doesn't really run the route tree well. Am I right?
It's
So
a lot of outside like jump ball 50-50. You run not those nines and those fades and everything else. And maybe a corner occasional post, a skate post, stuff like that. But
yeah, he doesn't
yeah,
do well with those type of receivers. He needs a guy that who can run the route tree, he can take advantage of, take matchups with, come back to, throw with on the fly, make an adjustment at the line of scrimmage, make an offer. That's not Metcalf's strong suit. It's I'm bigger than you and I like Sour Patch Kids. So I don't know where that fit. Then you mentioned Mason Rudolph. Rudolph can have a little bit of success with him running over. I mean, 9-8 sounds about right. 9-8 sounds about right. That
I,
that
you
that
hear
that screams that right. Floor is yours.
you hear the rumor that's also going around too, floating around too, that the that they're really interested in trying to make a trade with the Jets to bring Alan Lazard in to try to appease Aaron Rodgers. That's the rumor that's going around. So you add him on top of that, and it's like, why? It makes no sense. That's the rumor that's floating around.
Well, did you hear why they? I have not heard why they chose not to go with Shedeur. I don't know what the logic was behind that. You know, what were the reasoning for not drafting Shedeur? Have you heard any reports about it? Because I haven't.
The Browns jumped him. That was it. That's why that trade
Yeah,
happened before. The
they had
Browns jumped him
four other rounds though.
because they couldn't justify because they knew they had a lot of needs. And the more and more as it started falling, a lot of people are just looking like, well, you look at the board, once the Eagles went through past the third round, it really became like, okay, what's on the board? Who's the highest player on the board? And we all know how he's penchant for trying to backload this roster with quarterbacks because we
You know,
obviously wound up with Kyle McCord. So they love to do that to try to flip him. I wouldn't be surprised if next year or the year after that, like next year, the year after that, they try to flip Tanner McKee to a quarterback needy team because that's what they do. It's almost like what the Green Bay Packers did when they had Brunell Peterson they couldn't get
yeah.
rid of, but in then far. So they try to get extra higher picks and just continue to flip them. So they were looking at this going, I can have him sit and use that. Okay, what have you do that? That's why I also think when you mentioned the Giants bringing in Shedeur, I still thought it was possible because of the way
No.
that Russell Wilson's contract was, because he's getting a per game bonus, so they can skirt around some of this stuff. Going, okay, week 12, week 13 is like, and you got to factor in Dable and Joe Shane. They need to win there to keep their jobs. They have to win. So I can see them keeping them there, but if they're out of it, it's like you can get Mara goes, hey, come in my office. Yeah, we're playing Jackson Dart now, and we're not paying these guys this much money. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Russell Wilson as the one, Winston as a two, and Dart as the emergency the first couple weeks. But then all of a sudden, in the middle of the year, when we
Yeah.
know they're going to fail, you'll see them happen. And all of a sudden, Jackson Dart's number two, James is the emergency, and then eventually Dart takes over. I wouldn't be surprised if we see
I
that.
don't even think James will be, and you know, you're probably the way it goes down, the way it unfolds is you're probably right. But when they signed Russell Wilson, I first thing I said was that's how they're going to play this. They're going to reach for the mediocre quarterback and have Russell coming for one or two games. Season's off, awful. They're losing. They blame it on Russell. They blame it on Russell. Then Russell gets benched and they start Dart. And now the future of the Giants is now. And then they've got a guy in Abdul Carter who's probably was the tail end of the season if he's healthy, if he remains healthy. And I don't know what his injury reports like in Penn State. Remains healthy, will probably have a good second half of the year, and everybody ends off right. And you mentioned that Dable keeps his job. I The thing about firing a coach, this is the issue I had in the NBA. Everybody wants to fire Doc Rivers, and rightfully so. Who are you going to replace him with? Who are you replacing Dable with? Who's the guy that's waiting that you think is going to be the hot shot? Is it Ryan Schottenheimer? Like, who's the guy that you're looking at that feel like, that's the next guy? There is nobody really. There's nobody coming up in the pipeline that's any different. There's no dynasty in the NFL. There's no whiz kid right now. Kellen Moore probably, if he waited till next year, Eagles win the Super Bowl again, then possibly he gets a better job. But the Saints, maybe he likes the Saints. Maybe he gets it. So yeah, but going back to I take you all over the place to bring you back to my point. Yeah, I believe that they set this thing up. What's the line of training day? You've been playing this all day. I've been playing this all week. Like they've been playing this all off season. They wanted Dart from the door. They knew the PR kickback they were going to get for once again, because everyone's going to say the same thing. The Giants have never had a black quarterback, or the Giants have only had one black quarterback start a game for them in X amount of years. That seems a bit odd. It doesn't matter if Mac is in the office, in the Oval Office or not. So yeah, that's how I play that out. I forget how we got all there. It's the off season. We're all a little rusty. Speaking of quarterbacks, Brock Purdy got a small island in Hawaii to stay with the 49ers. You don't like this deal. I do, but I'll let you go first.
I take that breath before. You look at this, and everybody says a system quarter. Everybody says it's a system's a system, and you're right. A lot of times, quarterbacks can do well within a certain type of system, and we've seen people come into the Shanahan system. They get plugged in. The checks are used to benefit the quarterback, and they do it well. I just look at when I see Purdy. I see a guy who I don't think he can take you when the moment is big. I just don't see him consistently doing that. And that's what you want out of your quarterback. You look at now that they're in cap hell. The 49ers are in cap
Yeah.
hell, and you're now giving him all this money, and you're going to have to retool. I know they drafted the wide receivers, and you're going to have to retool and everything. This whole money kept for a guy, if you're going to give him that, I think he's like sixth or seventh now, the sixth or seventh highest paid quarterback now in this league.
Well, he got 265 million extension officially, but he's got 181 guarantee. It's going to be paid an average 53 million a year.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. So, guys, finish your thoughts.
yeah. When you think of looking at this, does Brock Purdy deserve $53 million a year? I know the market. You take what the market gives you, but when you look at all the other
You
quarterbacks that are out
deserve what
there,
the market tells you deserve. You're worth what the
you
market
deserve it.
says you're worth.
Yeah, I just Dak Prescott getting 60. So
They're going to have to redo Jalen's deal.
they will. And I wouldn't be surprised to free up some things. They give it as a restructure where they free it up. That's why I think you look at what the Chiefs did with Mahomes and even the quote unquote restructure, and you think like, oh, you do this and this one. Apparently, from what I've heard, a lot of times the team is called, hey, we need a cap space. We're going to restructure your deal. This is where we're automatically triggering it. Players are just like, I get my money up front now in a signing bonus. So that one, so they do that. So I wouldn't be surprised if, say, 2026, especially 2027 and 28, they start to redo that. But then and I look at it. I look at the Eagles and you look at the roster. Consider they all a lot of players all have the same agent. A lot of Nicole has a lot of influence on there. You look at how many guys are part of that clutch. Devontae's part of clutch now. You got a couple of guys they signed their clutch. JL's going to be behind the scenes. I can see him working out a new deal, and he's like, oh, Brock. And I can see him in the jail saying, "Wait, Brock got 53. Okay, I can do this. Thanks, Dak."
Yeah.
He's going to get 65, 66.
Yeah. Well, I think Dak at 60 is a big number because Dak's probably not going to be there next year. Not this year coming up, but the following year. And we've been saying that every year about Dak. So let me put those words back in my mouth. I think Dak getting 60 is the one that because there's so much uncertainty surrounding Dak's future. I believe it's a good deal for the 49ers because what else are you doing? What good vibes do you have if you're San Francisco? And that doesn't sound like it's a lot, but for a team that almost got over the hump, but that behaved like they did, it's almost kind of like I like them to the Memphis Grizzlies years ago. Memphis was a team that was ascending, and then they got to the Warriors, and Ja gets hurt. And if Ja doesn't get hurt, they probably beat the Warriors in the playoffs. But they don't, Ja gets hurt. They lost at that point, and they behaved the next year if they had won the NBA title, as if they were the next dynasty. The 49ers lost twice to the Chiefs. And people like saying play here, play there, right? So in their mind, we made the ways, we won two Super Bowls. And they behaved that way. And, Debo going to the Commanders is another arrogant move. You traded one of your top threats. Forget about what he was in the locker room, because I don't know personally what he was in the locker room. But I know on the field he was one of your top threats the team's game plan to defend. You traded him in conference. It's arrogant. That's arrogant. That's like we think, all right, you beat us, we'll make another team. Ayuk is probably out for a while, but then you've got the issue with Bosa and things that are going with him politically and the comments he's made and things he's been a part of. You're full if you think that doesn't rub people the wrong way. So that's in your off season. You can't repeat that. You got Ayuk coming off an injury. You made him scream bloody murder to get his money. You traded Debo for whatever you think about the dude. You traded him in conference. And then you got all the things surrounding Bosa. You want to just try to do something good. Paying Brock this money, Mr. Irrelevant. Obviously, he's the highest paid last pick ever in the history of sports. history of sports. But you shore up a position. You don't have to worry. That's our quarterback. That's where we're going. You've got younger wide receivers. You've got a bunch of no-name guys coming in. And Jason Kelsey should put this on a t-shirt, because everyone says it now. Hungry dogs run faster. You got up your hungry dogs who have tasted any hype, while received success and no success. The Purdy deal had to get done. It's a smart deal. Who you going to replace him with if you don't sign him? So, the money is what it is because that's what the market dictates. Dictates. Floor is yours.
I look at this, and it wouldn't be popular out in San Francisco, I think. But if you look at the lay of the land right now in the NFC, 49ers aren't contending for a Super Bowl. They're not. And when you look at next year's draft class, I know we're saying every year we say, oh, if you look at next year's draft class, guy, well, you potentially have Arch Manning, you potentially have a bunch of these other guys that are coming out. It's going to be much better than you see last year. I think it's one of those things where you look at, you say, you take your lumps this year, you take all the cap hits this year, be bad, get to the put yourself in a position to get one of those guys, and then you rebuild from there. If you really trust your coach in developing quarterbacks, if not, why even like why this one? You stick with that's why I think it's a safe. You sticking with them. I just look at the fact like just take the bad year, rebuild that way, and you could be yourself a power again. Because right now you mentioned the Sixers, they're becoming like more like the middling thing. Like they're trying to fight to stay relative, but all they're doing is fighting to be mediocre now. So you're just going to keep fighting and fighting to be like, well, we're 4, 5, we're 5 seed, maybe a 4 seed some years, but it's bad.
You know, that would make sense if they hadn't done that. Trey Lance happened. You know what I mean? They took a top tier quarterback in the middle of the draft, albeit off a COVID year, but they still took the one of the best quarterback, and it didn't work out for them. So you say, okay, well then maybe go free agency. That'd be a good idea if that didn't happen. Jimmy Garoppolo happened. So they've gone every different route. This is a route they haven't gone yet. Going with the unproven guy that proved it on the field, that when he plays, has put up decent numbers, has galvanized the team. And look, you mentioned the 49ers not winning the Super Bowl. That's they may not win. Well, we don't want to ever say the team definitely won't win outside of the Jaguars. The likelihood of them participating in the Super Bowl is slim to none. But they can still be a competitive football team with the young players and allow themselves time to grow. And this year they shredded some salary. Next year they shred some salary. By the time these young guys are at the level that they're supposed to be at, they may have some cap relief. So, but the deal had to get done more than anything to get some good juju on your team, to get some good feeling on your team. Last thing, anything this offseason, any moves, any comments, rumors, anything that has piqued your interest, whether it be negative or positive.
I think I look at this what I'm about to say, I look at this area, they had a chance to be really, really successful. They had a chance to turn the tide and really become that one. But it's time for Cincinnati Bengals owner Mike Brown to sell a team. It's time, man.
It is
The
never
fact
going to
that
happen.
it's never going to happen because it's like, and I know I know owners will never do this because of revenue sharing. They think, okay, if it's a bad year, we can be in the same position. Guys like that just needs to be cut off. Or Josh Harris, not Josh Harris, but yeah, I forget the commander's name. Dan Snyder, be like Daniel Snyder. Like, listen, I know, and they'll go say, they'll point to, oh, we gave our wide receivers new contract extensions. We paid Joe Burrow this money. Well, you may have done that, but to alienate arguably your best player on a defense that was trash last year,
Yeah.
and then just going not even talk, just going. And all the thing is like, and allegedly, I'll say allegedly because there's two sides to every story. Your head coach goes, "Well, you better be here at camp before or you're gonna find Trey Hendrickson."
Yeah.
Like that communicate is top down bad communication, and he's hear all the other stories. I mean, when we went out to Cincinnati to cover that game, I'm thinking, all right, maybe they have a nice little facility. They have a bubble that looks like the one next to the vet for their players to practice in near the stadium. If you look at the draft room from like draft night, it like they held like the team back in the team cafeteria. That was their war room. Everything that the Browns do is just it just comes off as cheap. And until they actually get a new owner, they won't be. It makes more and more that Super Bowl appearance was a fluke. It makes it look worse and worse. And if I'm a Cincinnati fan, which I know it's few and far between, you're not a big old market, but still, if I'm a Bengals fan, what are you doing? Like force them out. Like find something.
Force them out.
Force them out. It's time with that one. But the way they're handling Trey Hendrickson and some of this other stuff they're doing as an organization is mind-boggling, to say the least.
For me, it was how bad the mighty have fallen. And by mighty, I mean New England Patriots. How bad they have fallen. First of all, Bill Belichick, and look, I don't talk about people's personal lives. I leave you alone. So girlfriend could be your granddaughter. I'm going to say that again. I'm going to say it slow for the slow and special. Your girlfriend could be your granddaughter. Oh, he's not the coach anymore, but he is a guy that ran your organization for the last few years. And, he is a bad representation of New England Patriots football at this point. Because when I see Bill Belichick now, I don't think coach of the Tar Heels. I don't think, Tom Brady's the GOAT who drafted him. I don't think any of that. I see an old man whose girlfriend could be his granddaughter. Fast forward. I see a guy that took Gerard Mayo, who was a respected football mind, a respected NFL member of the NFL community, and ran his name through the mud. And fired him after 1 year. He'll probably never get another head coaching job again. So they could hire Mike Vrabel, who Tennessee was okay. They were. I'll say this: they were better than okay, but they had a lot. We saw how good AJ Brown is. We saw how great the running back for the Ravens played there. His name escapes me.
Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry was. They were a really skilled football team. So you push Mayo out after 17 games. You can't even say full season because he didn't last 365 calendar days. You know, and then the final nail in the coffin, and you overpay for an over the hill, oft injured, not liked wide receiver. Think about that. They gave Stephon Diggs. They outbid themselves. They had two phones. One old cell phone that was the size of the brick and a flip phone. I'm going to give him 50 million. What are you going to give him? I'll give him. It's like they were competing against each other. They were competing against themselves. Cain versus Abel. And it all started with holding on to a guy who, since you've left him, has decided to date a young lady that is old enough to be his granddaughter. Those decisions lining up to me, you just look at the Patriots and you just think, wow, they've really fallen. And May be a good quarterback. He may. It's Drake Drizzy, right? Drizzy May? Is that his name?
Drake, yeah.
He may be a good quarterback. I don't think he will be. But this is not an organization. And stop me when you see a quarterback variables developed. I'll wait. We got about 4 minutes left. Stop me when you find a quarterback of variables developed. Because Tannehill was okay, but that had nothing to do with variable. They wanted to run the ball every down. Didn't get along with AJ Brown. Serene. I was about to call him Serene. I called him Serene. Sirianni has found not only a way to get along with AJ Brown, but make him one of the top threats on a Super Bowl winning team. He's played 2 Super Bowls. He was arguably one of the best players on the field next to Jalen in the first Super Bowl. Second Super Bowl, the pass interference call, we can argue, but it set the tone. Whether you took the penalty or not, he set the tone. So look, it's just how bad the Patriots are right now. And Stephon Diggs is literally, to quote the great philosopher, Skip Bayless, the icing on the cake. Paying him $10 million more than any other team was even considering paying him. It's just an indictment about how poor your organization's running. So I think that's it. That's all. That's it for me. We opened up talking about 2 bad franchises in the Browns and the Saints, and we closed it out with probably the worst franchise in the NFL right now, in the Patriots. I think that should put a bow on the show. That's it for this episode of Unparalleled Sports Talk. If you enjoyed the show, if you enjoyed the podcast, would you like, share, and comment, subscribe, whatever your podcast platform allows you to do. He's Chris Franklin. I'm Kwame Fisher-Jones. As always, we appreciate your time and your ear. Till next week, be easy.